It only took Aston Martin 6 years, but we finally have the Aston Martin Valhalla in its production form. So what we're gonna do in this video is have a look at this absolute stunning beauty and compare it to, because this is a pretty interesting case. We had two different concepts before we actually got to see, or the final production version here. We have the concept, I think it's called 003 from 2019. And then we had the Valhalla concept from, I do believe that was 1 or 2 years ago. And now, last but not least, finally we have the production version. So we're going to have a look at both the concept and the production version here. The interior as well, looking great. But before we jump into Photoshop here, check this out. We're going to take a look at this article from Car and Driver. Let's see what this is all about. So 2026. Aston Martin Valhalla, and this is a beauty of a car. So the Aston Martin Valhalla mid-engine hybrid supercar has been in the making for a long time. First teased as the 003 back in 2019, the Valhalla, as it now known, is finally slated to go into production in mid-2025. And as with the outrageous Aston Martin Valkyrie, which I actually think the Valhalla looks better than the Valkyrie, because Valhalla is more of a angled a little bit more towards road-going car when it comes to styling. The Valkyrie is just a pure, almost Le Mans racer. So the Valhalla is a race car for the road, as you say here, drawing inspiration from Formula One and utilizing lightweight materials and active aerodynamics. It has a central tub, is composed of carbon fiber, and power comes from the twin-turbo V8 sourced from Mercedes. Aston Martin's Formula One engine supplier made it to a plug-in hybrid system that generates a combined 1,064 horsepower. The gas engine feeds power to the rear tires, and then you also have the front tires being powered by a pair of electric motors. And I think this is a great setup. You have most of the ICE power going to the rear, and then you have additional traction for all-wheel drive with the help of electric power in the front end. Just a perfect setup, in my opinion. And you have an estimated top speed of 217 miles per hour, and 0 to 60 is supposedly done in 2.5 seconds. But as they say here in Car and Driver, I do think that is very, very conservative. 2.5 seconds for this type of vehicle with over 1,000 horsepower, probably under 2 seconds. We're going to have to wait and see. It will also have a pure EV mode, which Aston Martin claims is good for around 9 miles. So just cruising around town, going for short distances, you don't want to make a lot of noise. You can still have it in EV mode. I think these hybrid setups for supercars like this, to me, it just makes sense. So deliveries is supposed to start second half of 2025. Mercedes AMG sourced twin turbo 4-liter V8 that we have here is a flat plane crank. Aston Martin is also connected to Aston Martin's first ever 8-speed dual clutch automatic, and they will not build more than 999 units of this car. I think that is also cool because it's going to retain the value when we have a limited edition like this. And as we talked about before, you have 2 electric motors will power the front wheels, and a third will be integrated into the transmission. I do believe that is to just have some smoother transmissions when you drive this beauty. So carbon ceramic brakes will be standard. Active aerodynamics, you have some crazy active aerodynamics on this car. Major feature of the Valhalla, with movable front and rear wings that adjust to balance downforce and drag, maximize grip, or improve braking performance. It depends on what you want. If you want to have a slippery car, you just lower the wing. If you want to have more traction, just raise it up. And you can also probably use it as an air brake if you want to do that. So the interior here, this is the only thing that I am not a fan of when it comes to the Valhalla here. I don't like the styling of the interior, even though maybe so because it's more of a race car inspired. It doesn't really need to have a lot of styling in the interior. So we have 2 different screens. A lot of carbon fiber, of course, giving the cabin a unique visual character while keeping weight to a minimum. And we all know that weight kills any sort of sports car when it comes to the handling. That is one key feature you want to focus on. So sitting front and center before the driver is a rectangular F1 inspired steering wheel. I do like that. It looks very cool. It features physical infotainment controls. Forward of the steering wheel is a column-mounted digital display that shows a linear tachometer in race mode and a speedometer and a navigation when you cruise around and just have it in normal road driving. You also have wireless Apple CarPlay. You gotta have these things in today's cars, even though it is a hypercar. I would call this a hypercar. So while the Valhalla will feature conventional side mirrors, they'll be supplemented by a camera-based rear view display inside of the cabin. I like that we have regular side mirrors here. Side mirrors to me is a big deal when it comes to cars. Without them, when you put these small little cameras on, it just feels like it's missing its arms or something. Something is missing on the car when you have these cameras that we see on Audis, for example, very thin. So let's jump into Photoshop here and let's check out this new Valhalla from the concept all the way, finally, into production here. What a beautiful car this is. In a time when a lot of car manufacturers are moving into this product design, minimalistic styling that we have in specifically BMW. I would say maybe Mercedes is moving in that direction a little bit too. Here, super organic styling. This looks like an animal, again, like we had in the old Jaguars, like we talked about when we had a look at the new concept. This looks beautiful, and I love all the cut lines. It feels like it has different sort of levels to the bodywork, and there are some pretty big changes from the concept here going into production. The biggest change I can see in the front end is this corner right here. We have a different spoiler or side wing right here. We didn't have that on the concept. I do think the headlights looks to be almost identical to what we had in the concept right here. Looking beautiful. I love it in this green color as well. Looks very nice. And it's one of these cars that even though it is of such a extreme sports car or hypercar, we can still see the Aston Martin DNA inside of this car. I love that we have this cutout up in the hood, and we have this Aston Martin nose in the front end with these lines that I love when you do this, having it go up like this in sort of a duck face in the front end and then just slowly fades into the hood there. Big grille in the lower section, looking beautiful. Still very Aston Martin-ish with the graphics and of course the overall styling for this car. Now looking at the side view here, and this is where you can see some major differences in this area here. I remember when I saw this, this triangular shape that we have going on right here, you can see how harsh this is, and I didn't feel like that was... It didn't feel Aston Martin to me. Aston Martin is supposed to be smooth and elegant everywhere on the car, even though we have these cutouts here on the concept. As you can see, we still have the cutout here, but they changed up this area, and now it looks a lot more fluid, a lot more organic, a lot more what I want to see from Aston Martin. It looks like this area is completely redone, the bodywork here to create a much smoother design. We still have sort of the zigzag shape, as you can see with the reflections here, but it's not as harsh as it was right here. And we also have this connection now with this lower intake right here going in to the bodywork itself, instead of having it be separated and having this static piece down here at the bottom. So the changes that they made, this is one of these very rare situations where I really think that the production version looks a lot better than the concept, and that doesn't happen very often. We also have a new rear end here. The side profile looks beautiful. I think this is one of the most beautiful supercars on the market when this comes out. This is probably the one I would pick if I would choose between Ferrari, McLaren, and Aston Martin. I think this one is the most beautiful. Now looking at the rear end, the concept to production here. Couple of changes in the rear as well. I love that they still kept the exhaust pipe up here and also kept these ribs that we have going around the greenhouse. This is something that I was skeptical to see if they were actually going to put this in production, but you can see that we have that here. We still have it intact. So we have a separation between the carbon fiber roof here and the bodywork with this beautiful cut line. And of course, we have the exhaust here up top. You can see the active arrow, in this case, sitting way up high. And this can, of course, slide down and be completely slippery if you want to have that. Love the taillight design. Aston Martin and taillight designs right now, I think they're crushing it with their new models. They have some very interesting ideas of how to design taillights. But looking at the changes here, we have a different diffuser in the lower section. This is another reason why I prefer the production version over the concept, because look at this. In the concept, we have these two curvatures going in like this, which looks pretty cool. I mean, it doesn't look bad at all. But what this new design does with this design. So we have the zigzag design again coming back. It cuts out this area, which means that we can appreciate the width of the wheels from a straight rear view better. It just looks more planted because we can see more of the tire here than we could with this curvature cutting into that piece. So that is one of the reasons why I prefer this. And also we have a different section here underneath the taillights. We have this curvature going beautifully like this and kind of creating a nice base frame for the taillights. You can see that we didn't have that line going here in between the taillights. Instead, it ended here in the concept. You can see the differences there. Another reason why I just think the production version looks it looks more finished than the concept, and that is pretty obvious when you say it out loud. But usually what happens is companies put out concept cars just to go crazy with the design, and we all know that a lot of these features normally when we see concept cars are not going to make it into production. They're going to switch it up a little bit, and they did that here as well, but we didn't lose anything. Instead, we gained a lot when it comes to the production version. Now, looking at the interior, as I said, this being more of a race car inspired design, I can see why we want to have it be a little bit more functional and less stylized. So we have two screens, one for the infotainment screen right here, and also one for the gauge cluster behind this squared off steering wheel, which I think looks very, very cool. You can see we have forged carbon fiber inside of the steering wheel here as well. Clean looking vents, everything looks to be forged carbon fiber in this interior, looking super clean. We have the gear selector here for the Mercedes, for the in-house, for the first time, 8-speed automatic from Aston Martin. And look at this, we have a couple of physical buttons here for the, I do believe, is this the climate control settings? At least some of them are. Looks like we have the main, temp and heated seats and stuff like that. Still looks to be inside of the software, but thankfully we still have at least a couple of buttons down there. So overall, as I said, if I were to pick between the new Ferrari, the W1 McLaren, or this one, is going to be this one when it comes to the, just pure design aesthetics. If I were to choose between one of these cars that I want to have in my garage on a turntable and just sip on my morning coffee and just appreciate the design, is going to be this one. And hopefully I get to see one of the 999 cars out on the road one day.